Goeiemorgen, Bernadine.
Hi, how are you?
Um, I'm fine, thanks to you. Thanks for joining the show. You are with MrShowTym live. Today we're going to be discussing the state of marriages and relationships in South Africa. Now, a couple of days ago, you and I had small talk about, what your philosophies are with regards to feminism and what are the causes of the declining rate of marriage in South Africa. Without further ado, can you just give us an a brief introduction of who you are and your early upbringing?
All right. Well, I'm Bernadine Swanepoel. I was born Williams. I grew up, I was born in Impangeni, the coast. Mom got divorced when I was in grade 1, and then she met a wonderful husband who's today actually my biological, well, not my biological dad, but he's my dad. He supported us. He's been there through thick and thin. He's the only father figure I've ever known. And yeah, I got married when I was really young to my high school sweetheart. Unfortunately, we got divorced. I had 2 beautiful boys. Got married a second time, had my 3rd son, and got divorced when I was about 7 months pregnant. And for the last 7 years, I've been a single mom. So yeah.
Between the two of you, who initiated the divorce?
With my first marriage, it was kind of mutual. I think we were too young because we started dating when I was in standard 6. We had kids. My firstborn was born when I was 20. And, he was working overseas. It was very difficult. We were immature. We're on very good grounds right now. He's got an amazing wife. We get along very well. We co-parent very well, even though he only sees the boys once a year because he works overseas. And then with my second husband, I had 2 options: either, stay, and it could turn out very badly due to domestic violence, or, walk out and start all over, which I did.
Okay. With your first marriage, was it also a case of domestic violence, or again, in your first marriage, who broke up with who first? Was it also an issue of domestic violence?
No, not at all. Not at all. He's an amazing father. I think it's just over the years we kind of grew apart. So I think the divorce came from both our sides. I think, it was a lot of pressure being so young and, being a mom with kids at home, him working overseas. It was very, very difficult. So there was no such thing as domestic violence or anything like that. He's an amazing father. I think we were just too young and we weren't ready. I think that's basically what it was.
Okay. So I looked up the Google stats on the declining rates of marriage, and it says here that women file for divorce 54.8% of the time, and men at only 33.7%. So it really shows that women are on average, above average, 54% is above average, tend to file for divorce often more than men, which causes the declining rates of marriage. And the way we know men generally wants to keep the families intact. There are exceptions to the rule, such as yourself. You say you suffered from domestic violence. I perfectly sympathize with that. The thing is, on average, women tends to especially modern women today, right? So let's say women below the age of 30, since a woman's value is based on her looks, youth, and fertility, that's her primal currency in the dating market. They tend to think that they can attract better, attract more. So that's why I looked at these stats and I wasn't surprised at all. Again, what did our mothers teach us about how to treat a man or on how to keep a man? Because a man's job is to attain a woman for for coitus, right? That's now I'm talking biology. While a woman's job is to keep and retain a man's commitment, right? So what are some of the values that our mothers taught us in terms of how to treat a man and how to, maintain a relationship or marriage?
Well, you know what? I think in the olden days, it was completely different. I mean, you didn't get that many divorces, and I think social media has a lot to do with it, personally, because in the olden days, men were the protectors, they were the providers. Women tend to stay at home, take care of the kids, all those kind of things. And throughout the years, it kind of changed. My mother personally, she's one of those women, with my biological father, she stuck around for many years. Even though he was cheating left and right, she stuck by him because that's the kind of values my grandmother taught her. You stick by your husband regardless what. You try to make the marriage work for the kids' sake, but you can only take so much. So eventually my mom did file for divorce, and she met an amazing husband. They're not just husband and wife, but they're best friends. And to me, that was the perfect example of how a marriage should be. They didn't have different parties involved. It was just husband and wife, and they're providing for the family. So my mother told me, you fight for your marriage. You do everything you can. But in some cases, you can fight as much as you want. It doesn't always work out. But I do feel that in today's society, social media does play a big role. Because marriages aren't what they used to be at all. It's not compared to in the olden days. They used to get married and they would celebrate their anniversaries 50 years down the line. You don't really get that in today's time. And that's kind of sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. And also, marriages tends to end up in a train wreck, let's say around the 10-year mark, because at that point, I like what you said when you said it was a different time and there was no social media back in the day. Now we have all these social barriers and these social hinders such as social media, feminism, OnlyFans, right? Women from early age of 16 to 18 onwards, they are earning money, millions of OnlyFans. So when women are able to make money using their sexuality, what incentive do they have to retreat back to the traditional conservative way of living, being a housewife, barefoot and pregnant, and honor thy husband? There's no incentive because now she can make millions. Now, she doesn't think long term after she's, past her prime, let's say past her 40s, because, a woman's age, as she gets older, she loses her looks. Yeah. She starts to get wrinkles. She's not as attractive as she was compared to when she was 18. So women tend not to think about the long-term ramifications of using OnlyFans and trying to, garner sexual attention on social media. And that's where they fall by the wayside. That's where the shaming comes in. Oh, that's fat shaming, that's ageist, and you should take me as I am. And a lot of men are like, no, we can't take women who are past their prime because you rejected me back in high school. I was a clown, I was corny, and now that you're old and wasted, now you want me back. It doesn't work like that. That's why a lot of men are checking out of the dating market today. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, when it comes to the one problem I do have with social media is you get a lot of influence on social media with not the right kind of information and not the right kind of motivation. So since, social media and all of this came into place, you do get women that kind of use it to, sexually exploit themselves, whether it's for money. I do feel that a lot of women have lost a lot of moral value through social media. But at the same time, infidelity plays a huge role in social media. I myself, it's like when you sent me the message on Facebook Messenger, for example. I don't use Facebook Messenger for a specific reason. Every now and again, I'll check in because I do sometimes get clients that send me a message. So I do check in to see whether or not I do have a message from a client. But majority of the time, I get messages from men, and most of them are married. But it's not just men that will send you messages. You know, you get women that go on social media and troll for married men, whether it is to be a sugar baby, as they call it, or to get somebody on the sideline to pay for their expenses and their makeup and their hair and glamour. But social media does not have a positive impact, especially on marriages.
Exactly. I once did an interview with a friend. I think I sent you a link. I posted the same small clip on Facebook, and I got backlash. I have wives yelling at me in my DMs, in my inboxes, saying that, oh, you're a misogynist, you're just insecure. And again, we live in the age of emotionalism, feels before reals. Women prioritize emotions first, and then reason, and then logic. Where men, it's like the inverse. We prioritize logic, and then reason, and then emotions last. So with that being said, there's a lot of wives, the same wives that are yelling at me. Some of them I went to high school with, right? They're married. And it's becoming quite clear to me that it's the wives that are wearing the pants in that family. Because if you're going to exert so much energy to another man who you're not married to, that is low-key what they call micro-cheating, right? It's because you are investing energy instead of focusing on your husband, minding your own family, in your own household. You're out here arguing with other men. That's a masculine trait for wives to have. So it gave me kind of like this alerting signal that some of these men are sedated. They allow their wives to call the shots, even though it may not appear. Even though it may not appear that way on their social media, because they'll be taking their profile pictures, hugging together, kisses, the wedding ring. Oh, look at me, I'm engaged to Vickers van der Westhuizen. Oh, but behind closed doors, she's the one that's running the household. Small things like that. I clock onto small subtle cues like that. So again, social media, it is a tool for infidelity. It makes modern women angry because they know I'm telling the truth, right? They know I'm right. And you tell them, the average woman to delete the social media, she will glitch, right? Sparks will fly out of her ears like a malfunctioning robot, right? It's because they want to use it to as a backup plan, right? They want to continue to scroll the internet and see if there are better options out there in case this current husband is starting to slack off, and then she can simply divorce him, take off his stuff, and then there's other guys waiting in line in her DMs that she can simply fall back on. Women always have a fail-safe, right, in this society, and I'm here to wake some of these men up. And another thing, a lot of these men are sedated via pornography. That's one of the major reasons why pornography is free. You froze.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why pornography is free and available and it's in abundance, right? And because married men, they're in sexless marriages, right? So as a means to cope, because their wives are no longer putting out as much, because they really secure the bag, they really secure this commitment. So they have no incentive to impress him as long as prior to them getting married, right? So now they've got married, now they're just like their foot is off the pedal. Ergo, why so many men are in sexless marriages, and they simply go along with it, right? And I tell them this, oh, I'm the bad guy, right? So what are your thoughts on sexless marriages?
You know what? I think it's definitely a problem. In my personal case, my personal experience, I mean, I had no problem in my sexual relationships with my husbands. But regardless whether or not there was sex, it still didn't work. I think what a lot of people don't well, they do realize it, but sex is more emotion for women than what it is for men. And if you are a female and you have an emotional affair on social media, you're not going to want to have sex with your husband. Because if you've already got that emotional connection with somebody else on social media, you're not going to have that connection with your husband. And I think that's where the problem comes into. You can have the most amazing husband and very, he can be very connected to you sexually. But if you've got an emotional connection with somebody else on social media, you're not going to want to be with your husband. As easy as that. And at the same time, if you have a husband that just literally just wants to get on and get off without satisfying your needs, you're not going to want to take part in that, and you're going to lose the emotional connection. Sex does play a vital role in marriages. I do agree. You can't expect a marriage to work if there's not a sexual connection and if you don't have sex on a regular basis, because it connects you not only physically but intimately. But there are so many different factors that influence people's sexual connection in marriages.
The arousal aspect. So yeah, I like what you said when you said that our mothers and our grandmothers and those that came before them, our grandfathers used to be up to mischief with other women, and they stayed together regardless because they understand the sanctity of marriage is about maintaining the nuclear family. It's not about emotions. Now, women my generation, they're all about, I'm hearing these talking points of, I broke up with them because, what about my self-respect? What about my emotional needs, my communication? And like, madam, that's not what marriage is about. Marriage is about having children and having a nuclear family for the children to grow up in a stable household where there's mommy and daddy. Now, you have this new surge of women who, the strong and independent feminists, they want to be independent. I've heard women in my own personal family that I know personally who say that if they get into a marriage, they want to have their own household and the husband can have a separate household or they sleep in separate beds. And I'm like, how on earth, where on earth have you heard such? In what time in history has that ever worked? But no, there's no getting through to these women of today. They want to maintain their independence and they value their careers over over settling down. Now, what they fail to understand is their careers and job titles are not going anywhere, right? The corporate South Africa will always be there, right? Your cushy government office job will always be there, but your sexual currency and your ability to attract a mate disappears every year. Every time, with each passing year, as a woman, you get older and you lose your sexual currency. That's what modern women fail to understand, right? So I love the fact that you brought up the contrast between our grandmothers, and how modern women view marriage. A lot of modern women view marriage as, it's slavery and oppression, and I'm like, what on earth is going on here, right? So what would you tell women, since there's a stat on Google that says by 2030, 50% of all women will be single and childless, lonely, because they choose to go off their careers because they think that that's what makes them attractive. Another point, women tend to think that what makes them attractive, what makes them attractive are the same things that make men attractive. So for example, let me try and break it down. What makes a man attractive is his job title, how much money he earns. Now, women take that same blueprint and they apply it to themselves. And they say that, okay, in order for me to attract a high-value man, I must also mimic the same traits that he has, which is false. We do not need a woman to be able to provide and have high earnings, but then they turn around and say, oh no, you're just saying that because you're insecure. False. We do not need you to have money because as a man, that's my job to provide you with financial security, right? As a woman, your job is to be able to cook, clean, to soft skills, cooking, cleaning, turning a house into a home, be feminine, fit, friendly, submissive, cooperative, and again, being fit is also physically fit. Also plays a huge role into the sexual arousal part. We need you to be fit. Modern women, you have this whole fat acceptance movement, which is quite frankly deplorable and disgusting, right? People do not like people who are physically unattractive, right? So also there's this new outbreak of dog moms, women who treat their pets as their babies instead of getting pregnant with an actual human baby. I posted this on Facebook and I got nothing but backlash. Oh, we just you leave them alone. If she doesn't want to get pregnant, then that's her choice. Yeah, but you're gonna regret it later, because when women when they reach their 30s, there's something called the biological clock, where their biology is telling their brain is telling them, hey, you're about to lose all your ovaries. So why haven't you produced any children, right? And that's where they start to panic, and that's where they start to, they hit the epiphany phase, where they start to realize all the misogynistic talking points now, they make sense all of a sudden. But guess what? It's too late by then, right? So what are your thoughts on women settling down later rather than sooner?
Look, I think it's the more modern way, because in the olden days, like my grandmother, she got married when she was 16. I think the more modern way is, a lot of females first want to have their career set and be financially stable before they get married. But to me personally, I feel the man should be the provider. He's the protector. I personally got married at a young age because I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a family. But then you do get ladies that I know personally. They do have this concept of my dog is my child. But it's not because they couldn't find a husband. It's because they couldn't have children because something was wrong. They were infertile or something like that. I don't personally know anybody that's got pets as kids because they didn't want to have children. But I feel, it's everything we get feeded on social media has an impact on how women think it's supposed to be. There's nothing wrong with strong, independent women wanting to work on a career, because I had to learn that on the hard way. I was a housewife. I was a mother. And then you get divorced, and to then all of a sudden try and find a job to provide for your children is extremely difficult. With my second marriage, I did exactly the same. When I met my husband, I had a job. I had an income. He wanted me to resign because he wanted me to be at home, to be a wife, to make sure the house is clean, provide for the kids. I did that. I ended up divorced. It took me 3 years to get back on my feet. And with today's economy, a lot of households, men want the woman to work because financially they're not coping. Let's face it, food's going up, inflation's going up, everything's going up. Your salary's not going up. So in a lot of households, women have to work because to have 2 incomes, you barely make the minimum to cover your costs. But I do feel, I do understand you get women that they rather focus on their careers than getting married and having kids. And then by the time they do actually want it, it is too late. But to me personally, I'm one of those women. I wanted to have children. I wanted to be a mother. Now I am a mother, but I have to work. I'm a single mom. I have to provide for my kids. Because you don't always get dads that pay maintenance. They have the babies, but they don't always want to pay maintenance. You've got a car you have to pay. You have to put food on the table. You've got a house you need to pay. So it's not always easy. But I feel women shouldn't cry when they can't have kids because the clock ran out, all because they wanted to focus on a career.
Bad choices, yeah. They drank the feminist Kool-Aid. I like what you said about inflation. Yeah, in today's socio-economic climate, you need 2 incomes.
Yeah.
It's not like with my parents. My parents, they had 5 kids, right? I'm the youngest, right? I'm the ugly duckling, right? I was born on Christmas and I was nicknamed Black Jesus back in school. And I was like, stop. Because I was born on Christmas, right? But anyway, my parents were able to, they're both teachers. My father was the headmaster of his school, and they were making both, let's say, around 15,000 per month, right? So, and back then, that was a significant amount of money. That was a fair amount of money to be able to raise kids. Today, not so much because, again, inflation, gas prices are through the roof. So it's no longer the same playing field. You need 2 incomes. So I'm not saying that women shouldn't work at all. We all must work to survive, right? It's common sense. But my question to you is, were you happy as a housewife as opposed to working as a single mother? Was life better as a housewife with your husband taking care of everything?
I was definitely happy. It was actually nice for me to get up and, spend time with my kids during the day, make sure the house is fine.
Sit back and just relax.
Yes. Well, not relax so much, but it was nice to be involved with my kids 24/7 and to make sure that dinner's ready at night when my husband comes home. It was nice. Now it's flippin' stressful. I work on commission. So I know if I don't grind, I don't put food on the table, it's tough. I would love to be a housewife. I really would. To me, nothing would be better to know I've got a husband who goes out, he does all the hard work. I need to ensure the house is clean, things are taken care of. I can actually spend time with my kids, sit with their homework, do what I need to do. And now, I have to work. I'm the main and only sole provider. I leave home in the morning 6 o'clock. I get home 6 o'clock at night. Then I still have to cook. I need to make sure the house is clean. I have to sit with homework with the kids. We get in bed round about 9 and you're exhausted. It would be nice to know I can, sleep till 7 in the morning, make sure the kids are sorted for school. I've got a husband working, taking care of the bills. It would be ideal. But in my world, unfortunately, it's not.
Exactly, 100%. Thank you for proving my point. Exactly. It's you see, men have broad shoulders. We have hard physical bodies. We are designed biologically to bear stress, right? We have the burden of performance. Women have wide hips. They are built to, bear children. You say that in today's mainstream society, you get cancelled for some odd reason. People have foregone all logic and reason, which brings me to my next point. Are men and women equal with pertains to our biology and our neurological differences? I'm talking sports, female sporting codes. We see now the pushing of women's sports. Congratulations for women, the Proteas. Unfortunately, they're not starting the final in cricket. There's a lot of pushing of female sports and this whole female empowerment narrative that, men and women are equal. And we say, no, because we are built biologically different, we're not equal. We're equal in the sense of we're all human beings on a baseline, yes. But with regards to our gender and our biology, we're vastly different. So therefore, now they're pushing for female leaders, right? And I'm saying women are not good leaders as much as men. It's just not the same, right? Many high schools and many industries now have female leaders, female faculty officers at my university. It's an all-female cast, right? And that has had a significant role in the effeminization of men, because since primary school, high school, and even university, from bottom all up to the top, children are only seeing female teachers, right? And for boys, it's very critical for them to have a masculine father figure. To those who didn't have father figures, let's say a father figure in terms of a teacher, we had a very stern English teacher in my high school, and he was a very masculine father figure in general speaking, right? I have a father in my life, and he too was very masculine. He was stern, and that's how I'm able to think rationally. Now, with most boys of today, they're very feminized, right? They neglect masculinity because we've been told that our masculinity is toxic, right? And as a result, men of today, they self-loathe. They hate the fact that they're men. They're like, oh my God, oh, I'm a guy with XY chromosomes. Ugh, disgusting. And to a guy that displays an ounce of masculinity, he gets ostracized. He gets ostracized from society as if, oh, it's something wrong with you. You're masculine, something wrong with you. And I'm like, no, masculinity is how our first world civilizations are built in the first place. So masculinity is very pivotal in terms of the upkeep of society. Unlike the mainstream rhetoric, now we're like, oh, masculinity is toxic. You should dumb your masculinity down. Whenever you ask a girl, be considerate, and the feminization of men. So, what's your takes on the war on masculinity today?
I don't think there's anything wrong with a man being masculine. I think what I find wrong sometimes is some men kind of think because I'm entitled to be masculine, I can be disrespectful. So there's a difference between being masculine and disrespectful. It doesn't mean because you're a man and you're masculine, you have the right to be disrespectful, whether it is to women or other men that are less masculine. For me, a man can be strong and he can be the provider and he can be the alpha and omega as long as he's still respectful. And that is, to me, that's where the issue comes in, is respect. I feel that, in the workplace, women that are leaders, by all means, if it works for you, go for it. I think women can have a positive influence when it comes to leadership positions. But in my own home life, I have realized that, for instance, schools, female teachers in general battle more with the boy students than what the male teachers do, because the boys have more respect and are, in a sense, more fearful towards the male teachers than what they are towards the female teachers. I've had that with my own boys. I've got 3 boys, and they can be a handful, but they tend to, the classes where they do have problems, it's not in the male teachers' classes, it's in the female teachers' classes. But at the same time, I feel that's because there is a glitch when it comes to parenting and how we teach our boys to be respectful men. You can be a strong leader, but you can still be respectful. And unfortunately, in today's youth, respect is something we lack. It's such a big problem. I mean, in the olden days with my grandparents, going back to my grandparents and my parents' time, if I was a kid back then and I had to backchat one of the teachers, I would get a whooping like you would not believe. But unfortunately today, if you just raise your hand to a child, it's considered abuse. Kids get away.
The child is considered verbal abuse.
Yeah, I know. Kids get away with a lot because, and once again, it comes back to social media influence. All these videos that you see about how you should treat a child and don't spank your child. You should have an honest, open discussion with your child. I'm sorry, that's not going to help with a young boy. You need to teach your kids respect. And unfortunately, a lot of men have grown up in that kind of household where they don't have respect. They use it, masculinity, kind of as, but I'm a man, I'm big and strong. I can talk to you however I want. And to me, that's not right.
Yeah, it also goes both sides for the females, where women are out there in the gyms wearing these skimpy outfits, recording themselves, and if a guy so much as glanced at them, they report to HR. Oh, he's sexually harassing me and stuff like that. So there is such a thing. If we're gonna say there's toxic masculinity, there's also such a thing as toxic femininity, right? Women thinking their ish doesn't stink, right? They think they smell like flowers. The princess syndrome effect, right? So yeah, it kind of goes both ways. And speaking of role models, have you ever heard the name Andrew Tate before?
My son is a huge fan.
Do you know why?
I think, okay, well, my son is a fan for different reasons. I think, the way he portrays, like, men are supposed to be the providers and the protectors. A lot of us, there are some things I don't agree with, like the way he speaks and the way he comes across sometimes is disrespectful. But in one of his interviews he actually said, you know what, if there's a girl in the club dancing around, throwing herself around, that's a perfect girl just to have a one-night stand. That's not the kind of girl you want to go and marry. If you find somebody in the club that's aside just with the friends, doing her own little thing, not flaunting herself around half naked on the dance floor, that's the kind of girl you should be entertaining, which I do get. In the beginning of his videos, because he has kind of changed throughout his fame season, if you can put it like that. In the beginning, he came across as very abrupt, very narcissistic, very rude. But some of his videos do have truth. I think a lot of females go out there half naked, craving attention, and the second they get the attention, it's sexual harassment. But if you're going to be walking around naked, you should expect that kind of attention from the wrong kind of guys with the wrong kind of attentions. And you shouldn't be crying then afterwards. So, yeah.
I've lost a group of friends when I mentioned the exact same points. I mean, we've taken responsibility and accountability away from women. I used to have a group of friends where I said, hey, listen, if you're going to be wearing skimpy outfits and you're getting catcalled and attention from guys, then you can't complain, because it's like you can't dive into an ocean and expect not to be chased by sharks. I mean, hello. I said that because a lot of men today, they're very effeminized and they identify with the female logic of thinking, right? It's feels before wheels first. Oh, how could you say that? I have to defend my lady. Simping, in other words. Now there's like some bad tension. And for my part, I was like, you know what? I understand why they're mad, because, they've been socially indoctrinized to, protect women at all costs, even if it's at the cost of logic and reason, right? So in this society, we're not holding women accountable enough, but we're very quick to hold men accountable. I mean, this is one of the burdens of being men. We get held accountable on a daily basis. Society will remind you, if you're a loser, people have no problem telling you that you are a loser. A street hobo, no one's coming to save you. But you hardly see a female street hobo who's homeless. Someone's always going to pick her up and save her, right? So that's one of the perks of being female, and that's why it's a simp epidemic, But yeah, your son probably identifies with Andrew Tate because it's not so much as Andrew Tate being abrasive and misogynistic and too aggressive. It's because there's a need for that. This whole thing we're doing is like a chess game. There's a need for men to just express outright masculinity, because now it's all about being politically correct and not wanting to offend. So when Andrew Tate came out and he expressed he was unapologetically masculine, people just it was like a breath of fresh air, like finally someone who's like unapologetically masculine, because we've been censored for masculinity for so long. And that's why Andrew Tate was famous, because there was a need for that archetype of masculinity, right? So yeah, that's all I have. The questions I have for you for now. Bernadine, thank you so much for coming for coming through. This has been a wonderful, productive live stream, and thank you so much for coming through. Is there anything? Is there like a business page you'd like to promote? Any last thoughts before we end the show?
No, I don't have any business page to promote, but people can have a look at my Instagram page. I've got a lot planning for my Women and Child Abuse Center fundraising. So if anybody would like to get involved, they can just follow me on Instagram and have a look there.
All right. Thank you so much, Bernadine, for coming. And this was the MrShowTym podcast, and we are out.
Thank you for having me. Bye.